Just some updates. By the way, Charlie will be here shortly, so he's running a little bit late. There's a couple things going on, and then we'll get to some of the bigger items. For those of you interested, and we just issued a press release on this, we're hosting our 10th Citizen Police Academy. So if anybody is interested in attending that, it's an 11-week program. It's 1 day a week, if I remember right. Let's see if I can do Mondays, yeah. And then they'll have a dinner at the last one. There's no cost to participate. You'll get a basic understanding how the police department functions as an organization, why they make the decisions they make. Includes courses on patrol operations, use of force, crime scene investigation, firearms, traffic enforcement, drug recognition, and other topics. And it's all taught by our police department personnel. Let's see. Citizens eligible to apply for the academy must be a Lake Havasu City resident that is 18 years or older, with no felony convictions and no misdemeanor convictions within 1 year of application. And we do ask, though, that you commit to attend all the trainings. Let's see, and you can get an application at the police department. It's limited to 34 participants, and you have to pass a limited background check. All the people that have gone through this really have enjoyed it. Now they even actually have an alumni group for the police academy. But they've found that it was incredibly informative, and it gave them a better understanding of some of the decisions, split decisions that our police department have to make each and every day. So next Friday is our community dinner. So if any of you would like to attend, we would love to have you there. We typically serve somewhere between 600, 700, and even sometimes up to 800 individuals. It's open to everybody. It is a free dinner. It'll be held at the Aquatic Center starting at 5 o'clock. It's if you've got kids or grandkids, bring them. There's toys for the kids. Santa Claus will be there. It's really a great event. And this year, Anderson Auto Group is actually having kind of a photo corner, so they hired a photographer to take pictures. Those are free as well. So if you can make it and spend some time with friends and neighbors, and can put up with some of the other city council people, we would love to have you there. All right, let's talk about some of the projects that we've been talking about for some time. Just an update on the America's Best Communities. Frontier Communications, you probably read in the paper that Frontier is going through some reorganization. We have confirmation, however, it will not impact this competition at all. So, so we're happy to hear that. Having said that, you know, to be honest with you, the Havasu Vision 2020 plan is really about Lake Havasu City and growing the way we need to grow properly, make sure that we have jobs in the future, that there's water, that we're sustainable as a community. So even if they drop the competition, we're not stopping what we're doing, not at all. In fact, I just met yesterday, the last 2 days, on one of our projects, which is teaching entrepreneurs how to better run their business. We have 2 potential candidates, and then in addition to that, Andy Campbell, the CPA here in town, and I are going to be teaching a class in January called Financials 101, because one of the things that we see all the time, when I used to be a practicing CPA, that many of our clients really don't understand how to read their financial statements. And so this class is going to be all about not only some basic accounting stuff, but how you read your financials and how you can improve your business by better understanding your financial results. So we'll be teaching that on January 18th, room 600 at MCC for an hour and a half. That'll be in the evening, 5:30 to 7. So the group is continuing to move forward. We have another submittal right around the beginning of January, and then our final submittal will be 3 months later, and hopefully within a month from that, we'll know where we ended up on in the final 8. And we're again hoping that it's number 1, 2, or 3. We'd like it to be number 1, of course. For those of you who could not attend, we had the groundbreaking for the Havasu Riviera project. We used to call it the Havasu 280. We're trying to get away from that because the Havasu 280 meant virtually nothing other than there were 280 acres there. So we're trying to get away from that, but we had a groundbreaking where representatives from Congressman Gosar's office was there. Arizona State Parks Director Sue Black was there. Governor Doug Ducey sent a proclamation. Senator Borelli was there, and then we had a lot of the community was there to do a groundbreaking. That again is going to be a new state park here in Lake Havasu City with a new launch ramp and other amenities, including dry boat storage, restaurants, tackle, bait shop, that sort of thing. Ultimately, there'll be a marina there as well. Then down closer to the water where the private property exists, there will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 new homes, along with a hotel/resort and commercial center. And the property that we call the 280, which really is under the control of the city, that we obtained from the BLM, that will be a botanical garden, an eco-environmental center, and we've got a placemat for a golf course. Whether or not there will ultimately be a golf course is yet to be seen. But we are excited about at least the eco-environmental center and the botanical gardens. The botanical gardens would be run by a private organization, and we're working towards that right now. The eco-environmental center would be really a learning center for the community, not only for ASU and kids in high school, but also all the various agencies on the lake would share that resource as well. Because we have a lot of data about the lake. It's never been analyzed. I mean, I belong to a group called CRISCO, Clean Colorado River Sustainability Coalition. We have all kinds of data, and but nobody's ever done a historical analysis. So you can look at, okay, you got whatever, so many parts per million, but it doesn't mean anything unless you can compare it to history. So that would be part of that eco-environmental center. We would also move our water quality people probably down to that center as well. So that is exciting. It's moving along. The city has already started moving dirt to build the road and put in the basic infrastructure, water and sewer. Pretty soon you're probably going to see, as you go up the highway, you're going to see that berm disappear, and you'll have a better view of what this project is all about. It's absolutely spectacular. There's no other way to put it. It is spectacular. Cypress Park. We are moving along with Cypress Park. One of the things that will be on the council's agenda on Tuesday is the potential purchase of Cypress Park. We, along with the school district, thought it would be best that the city acquire that if possible. We're going to be making millions of dollars of improvements for the children of our community. And we just felt that doing that and not having complete control of that property probably wasn't in our best interest. So we talked to the school district. They were in agreement. So we're going to put on our city council agenda, it already is, but on Tuesday, the possibility of acquiring that property for a purchase price of $1 million. On the 20th, I believe, the school board would then also go through the same process and hopefully agree to sell it to us for $1 million. So I think that in the end, that would probably be the best thing. The school district is allowed to do this as long as they're selling it to another public entity. And that's why this works and we can get it done so quickly. So we're hopeful that all the parties do agree to do it. Let's see, what am I forgetting? Oh, the hotel. The hotel is moving along. And I'm gonna, once Charlie is all wired up here, because Charlie talked to some of the principals just a couple days ago. But one of the things that people did react to about the new Holiday Inn Suites, or what's it, Holiday Express Suites, was the color scheme. And so when I met with them, I just asked them, is that color scheme of, what is it, kind of a red and orange and yellow, is that set in stone, or do you have some alternatives? And they said, oh no, that was just an artist's rendition. And so tell you what, we'll look at some color schemes that will be more compatible with the London Bridge and the area and whatnot. So that's one of the things we know they're going to be doing. It's already went through P&Z, no comments. People seem to be pretty happy with the whole idea. And as far as I know, they're still on schedule to break ground roughly in April. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, that's still correct. Good. Let's see, what am I forgetting? Sarah Park. It's still, we're doing the design. We're working on that. I got an interesting question just the other day, and it wasn't a bad question, but an interesting question. Why are there so many fire hydrants along the back road, along behind Sarah Park? What kind of fire can occur there? Well, the reason we have fire hydrants is because that's where we put that water main, so that we could finally build something at Sarah Park. For those of you who have been tending this for a while, you know that Sarah Park really didn't have any water main to it at all. It was a bunch of PVC pipes that went back and forth, and Dub Campbell was fixing it every time somebody used the restroom at the rodeo. And so we finally said, look, if we're going to build a sports complex or have any development at Sarah, we're going to have to put a ring around the park of water, which we did. It's been completed. It's $750,000. Ultimately, we want to use effluent, reclaimed water, to water that park. But that's a $5 million project that takes some time. So in the meantime, we want to get the sports complex started, and then ultimately we'll bring a line down probably from the North Wastewater Treatment Facility and have gravitational pull all the way down to Sarah Park. But you know, that's a big chunk to accept initially. So, but we'll get there. What am I forgetting? Anybody can think of anything that we've talked about before? All right, then. Well, let me ask you, Charlie. Did Bill have any other news regarding the hotel?
No, not much change with respect to the design of the hotel, the location. Anything that's been presented so far is still in place. What we're dealing with now is the public access easements along the seawall, along the channel. We want to make sure that the city secures that public access in perpetuity, and we do that through a public access easement. Frankly, for years we've all thought that there already was an easement there, and it does show up on a few old maps. But in all of our research and all of VRE's research and their attorneys that are looking into the matter, we can't find a recorded document anywhere that would verify the fact that that easement exists. So what we're dealing with now is looking at the design, not just for the hotel, but for the improvements that they want to make to the English Village itself. They do want to improve the English Village, take out that old broken concrete that's down there that's difficult to walk on, and put in pavers and make it nice, and put in some lighting, sidewalk, landscaping, and to participate, I have made a commitment that the city will come in and retrofit all of those old bollard and chain setup that's along the top of the seawall. Those bollards are made of concrete and rebar, and they don't last. It's a poor design for that location or that application. So we're going to come in and replace all of those bollards and chains with steel equivalents. They'll look very similar, still the old cannon and ball and chain. So the look will be much the same, but they'll be safe. They'll last a lot longer, and we won't be down there repairing the things year after year after year. So that's going to be the city's contribution. Plus, we'll look at lighting along that walkway that we're hopefully going to secure that easement for, and I'm assured that we will. Right now, we're talking about how wide does it really need to be. We've talked about 40 feet, 35 feet, 15 feet, and so now we're looking at the maps and plotting out how that easement might look on the maps, and trying to zero in on exactly how we're going to describe that easement, and then get it recorded, get it in the books, and get it nailed down. So that's really the only dynamic factors, if you will, for the English Village at this point. Is it's not just about the hotel now. VRE is planning to come in and make improvements to the village itself, because the village is going to be an amenity for the hotel and a marketing tool. So you'll see improvements in that whole area.
So with that, we'll listen to the blender for a second. Does anybody have any questions? Mike? It's still out there somewhere. Actually, in terms of the second bridge, we have an organization that's been in existence a couple of years. It was actually federally mandated, called the Lake Havasu Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm the chairman of that organization. They look at different improvements, not only safety, but for various modes of transportation. One of the things they were going to look at was improving the, the four-way area right there at Lake Havasu Avenue, McCulloch Boulevard, as it goes across to go to the McCulloch Bridge. And they said so that the traffic flow would be better. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, if you really want traffic flow to be better, a second bridge would make it a lot better. So what they're doing, so I directed the executive director to begin discussions with ADOT and to see whether or not a public-private partnership could be formed to get that bridge built. It's a long-term endeavor, there's no doubt about it. It would also mean that that bridge would have a toll, but quite honestly, most people would pay a nominal toll if they can get across pretty quickly, especially our visitors who are coming from, say, California, and they've been driving a long time. The last thing they want to do is they don't want to wind around to try to get across the London Bridge. But if they had complete, quick access, 75 cents for the amount of money they spend, or $1 or whatever the toll is nothing. So we certainly are trying to plan for it. We know it's important from public safety and other reasons, but we're going to see what we can get started. Prior to the recession, there were companies that were very interested in doing that, and when the recession hit, that interest just dried up. So hopefully now that the economy is getting better and our president-elect's talking about new infrastructure projects, maybe there'll be some interest there. I truly believe there's enough traffic flow so that they could build it and get a reasonable return on your investment based on tolls. So we're hopeful. Anyone else? Chuck?
Yeah, weren't we deeded the property underneath the London Bridge? on
We
that
were.
side?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you approximately how know it is from the seawall to the butt of the bridge? Is it like 40 feet in there?
No, it'd be
It's
longer.
more than that.
It'd be more than that.
More than that?
Yeah,
It's a full acre.
we were deeded by VRE, the area under the bridge, and then they built a new stage for us. So, and they gave that to the city. But I'd say that's more like almost 100 feet, I'd say.
Because I was thinking, you know, if they only want to give us 15 feet, you know, easement there, that kind of looked funny, 15 feet up to 100 feet, and then, you know, what I'm saying?
Well, it wouldn't look any different, to be honest with you. It's just what is going to be
Well, if they could
public
build
versus
down to
private.
the 15 feet, you know,
Yeah, they wouldn't build that far down. That wouldn't make any sense for them, I don't think, to go that close. You've got that water table that would make it almost prohibitive.
Yeah,
plus
they're-
if there's any kiosks down there.
Yeah, you know, I want to make clear that VRE is willing to work with us on whatever that width needs to be. It's
Right.
not like they're trying to limit us to 15 feet. It's just, the old maps show 15 feet, and then the development agreement for the village says 40 feet.
Right.
40 feet's probably too much. 15 may not be enough, so we're just kind of haggling over, you know, what is that proper width there, because we don't want to limit their ability to have, you know, kiosks and vendors, and we don't want to limit the flexibility of that use. We just want to make sure that the documents are in place to ensure that it never gets blocked or impeded, that there's always public access.
Right. And some people might say, well, why not, instead of an easement, why don't you just have them deed it to the city? Well, if there's debt on the property, which in most cases down there is, no bank's going to allow that. So that's not going to work. But an easement does work. So we're going to work toward that.
Well, the reason I asked is because, you know, when they were gonna build the hotel before that, they were talking about a restaurant right there, and then a patio. Was that gonna be in the easement, or was it gonna have to be left back on their property? You understand what I mean?
Sure, yeah. You know, I'm not sure exactly where it falls, but there's also a building setback there.
Right.
And that building setback is about 40 feet.
Oh, okay.
So,
They can't start
yeah,
at
so-
least 40 feet back.
Yeah, exactly. So how much of that patio might have been in what was going to be the easement, and how much was in the setback? My guess is that most of it was just in the building setback area. So yeah, 40 feet, you know, if the public access easement is granted to the city and it's really bigger than it needs to be, well then, you know, we have the responsibility for maintenance, and you know, there's some liability and responsibility that comes along with maintaining that easement. So it needs to be a reasonable width. We don't want it to be too big, and certainly we don't want it to be too small. So we'll come up with a number that works for all parties.
Mark, on an unrelated subject, I'm on the board with St. Vincent de Paul. We're having nothing but a terrible time in that area where Commander ties into McCullough with break-ins, the other business there, both places. You saw there was an article in the paper a week ago last Sunday.
Right.
Some guy come by on our camera. He had a hoodie, young guy walking by, threw a big hunk of concrete right through the glass doors on our furniture store. Never even went inside. And we've had over at our clothing store, we had a stretch there about a month ago. Somebody cut a hole in the fence 5 nights in a row and went in and stole junk. And a young man has started a new boat repair shop right behind us. Just this week, somebody cut a hole in his fence, went in there, took a bunch of high-end electronic stuff off of what he was working on. And it just, I can't even tell you how many times we've had the cops down there in the last 2 or 3 months. And it's, there don't seem to be, there's another boat and RV place next to our furniture store. Was talking to him yesterday, he's got a guy now sleeping in one of his RVs because there's just, and I don't know what the thing is, and then right up the alley, the ABC, the big supply house, somebody started $40,000 worth of pallets and stuff on fire in there. Now, they didn't do that just throwing a cigarette over that. So I sent down by us a whole semi-load of our pallets back to Phoenix to get us away from that fence. But it, I don't know if there is.
Have we
crazies
started
or
some
what they
increased
are. I mean,
enforcement in
yeah.
there?
Absolutely.
We've already started it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, what I was asking Charlie is whether or not the police department has begun some increased enforcement, and they have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, all too often in cases like this where we kind of have a rash of incidences in a relatively small area, you're talking about, you know, even just one of a group of people, and once we get that one, then you know we can tie a lot of crimes to either a single person or a small group of people. And I know that the police department and the fire department have both done concentrated investigation into those incidents.
We had one incident about a month ago, showed it right on the video in front, came and before we opened, went through stuff, took a grandfather clock and some other things. The policeman come along and asked to have our employees and our volunteers look, because quite often might be somebody coming here. Hour later, coming down Havasu Pie, one of our truck drivers looks, here's the grandfather clock, all cleaned up, and the other stuff with it for sale in front of the house. So we call, we meet the police, we go up there. There's two women, somewhere between 65 and 70. Really nice house, a couple of cars. They already had it for sale. And they went down and got into our stuff down there. And then when we're leaving, we got our stuff back, so we really didn't do the whole. So the one lady comes up to me and our manager and said, the policeman said, if you come back on their property and they call, you're going to jail. So she comes up to us and says, well, how are we going to be able to come down and make any donation? I mean, these weren't kids. I'm going, yeah, right, I'll be saying, I bet we get some good ones out of it. So it's not just the young people, it's older people that have done that kind of stuff all their life, I guess. Kind of sad.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Phil.
So back to the project, Riviera project. So is it safe to say that you said you're gonna start putting in sewer and water? So are the power poles gonna be underground there? It'll all be underground utilities?
Yes.
And are there gonna be the same building restriction heights there are on the island or in town?
BR1, there's going to be a multitude of uses from
Right.
you know, multifamily to townhomes. It's going to run the whole gamut of types of building products. So the zoning will certainly go along with that. Now we haven't processed any subdivision maps.
Right.
We don't know what's technically what's being proposed in detail, but the zoning will match whatever's going to be proposed there.
Won't be a bunch of hodgepodge.
Oh,
Well,
no,
it'll be a
this-
master plan community.
It's the same developers as Foothills, Comex.
These are people who know what they're doing, and they build a quality product, and I trust what they tell us.
Yeah. You'll see a new traffic light on Highway 95 as well. And what we've been working on with the developer is actually a development agreement, because while we'll take some responsibility for putting in some of the basic stuff, any expanded, they're responsible for. And so we're working on that right now.
Is there gonna be natural gas there also?
That I don't know.
That I have no idea.
Don't know.
Yes.
Could you give us an idea of the impact of that baseball tourney that was in town last weekend?
I have no idea. If you want the truth, I have no idea. I heard there was a tournament, but the first time I heard about it was when I read it in the newspaper. So I don't know what the economic impact would be. Generally speaking, those are pretty powerful, which is why we want to have a sports complex in that area, not just for baseball and softball, soccer as well. The the dynamic that you have to work through is reasonable availability and rates for hotels. So, because Bullhead has done a really good job with tournaments, but right across the river are a lot of inexpensive rooms at hotels that try to entice people to come there for other than staying overnight because they have gambling. So, but we're working all through that, but we are hopeful that we'll be able to draw tournaments. We're now getting inquiries also about the possibility of using our skate park for publicized events. And that's about as far as I'm allowed to go on that one, but so we're excited about that.
Well, the Quality Inn last week was booked. They were full.
So that may
The
be a
baseball
word that,
people.
oh,
So
cool.
Just to let you know.
All right, well, there you go.
It always books up fishing tournaments, everything.
Yeah, so there you go. Other questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but
Sure.
I have a concern.
Okay.
Well, first of all, this lady that was sitting here, she had a health,
Yeah, I talked to
we were
her.
talking to her. And I told her, I'm going back to California to see my doctor, my old doctor. I can't, here, when it takes you 3 or 4 months to get an appointment to see a doctor, it doesn't work for me. So I'm going back, my kids live in California, so I'll just go back and see my kids, go to my old doctor. And then second of all, we have a new shuttle service in town. Of course, it's been here for a couple months. But my granddaughter was here visiting a couple of months ago, and they charged her, now I live up by the high school, they charged her from Kokomo's to my house, $49. And that's a little bit too much. And we have shuttle services, I use $5 hauler, but she
Right.
didn't know to use that. And she called this new one, which she lives in California and it's known in California. But $49 one way,
And she's not disabled?
no,
Okay, interesting.
it was terrible.
Yeah, I wish we had some control over
The
the
state regulates.
the local shuttles, but the state regulates them and won't let the cities regulate them, which is
It
really,
was really sad because they used her credit card. And when she got in the car, she gave them her card and they put $49 on it one way.
and what did they advertise was the rate, or did they?
Well, they did it. She just called. She was at Kokomo's and she needed a ride. Well, she went there. They charged her $18 when she went there.
That still
When they
seems
picked her
high.
up, it was $49.
Yeah, interesting.
So it was
Okay.
sad.
Mike?
I don't know if you use Uber or not.
That's it. That's the
That's the
one.
one.
If you do
Use
Uber,
one.
they put the price up front before they pick you up, and they're doing it the proper way. And according to their guidelines, you get it right on your device, whether it be your phone or your iPad. You know the person that's picking you up, you know what kind of car they're driving, you know how much it's gonna cost. And then you have an account already, you don't tip them, and it goes directly to your credit card in your account. So I can't imagine that a person would not have known if it was a real Uber
Well,
driver.
That was her that night.
What the
It was
price
that. Yeah, it was.
I'm taking Uber to the Elks tonight, I'm gonna try it, just to see what happens. I've used Uber in Florida and Denver, but never in like Havasu. But Uber actually should end up being cheaper and better than any of these others.
And you can report that to Uber.
Yeah.
Maybe Mike's right, maybe it wasn't an Uber driver.
I
Well,
guess it was
she's
butter.
22 years old, so I think they just took a little bit of advantage of her.
Well, but
Yeah, she
that's
actually
still a
did.
But I use
reportable item.
$5 hauler. $5 hauler has been good to me.
Yeah.
$5, right off the bat, $5.
Yeah, I would still, I know Uber wants, when I talk to them, they want good quality people, they want good business practices. I would file a complaint with them,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the record would be on the credit card, so it would be easy to trace the transaction.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
just to compare, our neighbor up the street has to use a medical van for her doctor's appointments, and that's only $55. And they come out and
Yeah.
get you and wheel you up in there and take you to the doctor's office
Right.
and everything else. Yeah.
Anyone else? Right, Chuck?
Okay, on the Riviera project,
Uh-huh.
where the berm is coming down, is that where the road is gonna come into 95?
Yes.
Generally,
Basically,
yes.
kinda right there?
Generally, yes.
Okay, now are they going, you said they're doing the dirt work and stuff now, so we'll see exactly where the road will come in. I'm sure they won't cut into do they have not sidewalks, but curbs going up through there, and, but they gonna cut up, they're not gonna open it up already to the street, to 95.
Yes.
Right away. They just do
Well,
dirt work.
They will.
Yeah.
You know, what's keeping them from making the cut through that berm right now is there's a staging area, a former city operations lot, basically, that's right there. And we also need to get clearance and permits from ADOT. And so as soon as those permits are cleared, you'll see that cut being made through that berm. And that's where the intersection with the highway is going to be.
And that'll be the secondary, there'll be two access points, one off of Sweetwater and then this new one.
Right, yeah, the Sweetwater access will be a temporary construction access. That
Right.
won't be the regular
I was
access.
gonna say, won't that go through their residential area, basic kind of?
Yeah, it will for an interim period until we get that intersection in place. The terms of the agreement with ADOT are that no vertical construction will take place, no building will take place until that intersection is in and the traffic signal is in place. So up until that point, we'll be using Sweetwater as the construction access.
Have they said anything about when they're gonna actually start the launch ramp?
They're working through the permitting process at this point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts there. You know, you've got the Corps of Engineers, you've got, there's a lot to do there before they can start moving dirt down there. But in the meantime, we've begun the grading process to accommodate the road to be able to access that area down there so they can begin construction. And what's being done now is that grading work is being done for the roadway. The road bed essentially is what's being created now. And then in our next budget year, which begins in July, that's when we'll budget for the actual paving and curbs, gutters, whatever, sidewalks, that sort of thing will go in, as well as the buried infrastructure, the wet utilities, and we're going to run fiber optics down there, and so the utilities will go in as part of the next fiscal year.
Yeah, Comex told us that if everything goes well, which you never know, they hope to begin that project probably into summer, early fall of next year. But again, it just really depends on the federal permitting process. So the gentleman from the Army Corps of Engineers, Bill Miller, is a pretty reasonable guy and easy to work with. So I think it'll go pretty well. Other questions? Boy, it's an easy group this time.
Read your birthday card.
I'm not going to read my birthday card today.
All together now.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, boy.
Happy birthday, dear Mayor. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my mother, I was a little late this morning because my mother called me to complain to the mayor. Somehow she got my home phone number. I don't know how that happened.
So are you 50 now?
What's that? Am I
50 now?
Yeah, a little over. 64
I ran the
today.
metric system.
Yeah, there you go.
Do they see in the Sayre Park project, do they see them expanding the roller hockey area at all?
Not that I'm aware of. No, no.
That was my grandson did that for like 10 years, all through his
Right.
grammar school and high school, just went up to high school then.
Yeah, most of that was done by private organizations.
That's run by a user group, so to speak, and a league. And they haven't asked us for any expanded facilities out there.
Yeah, when it comes to the park system, we're pretty excited about getting all of that, not just started, but completed. It's funny, you can have all these studies and whatnot, and they'll give you general estimates of costs, and they always seem to be too low. So we're experiencing that on Cypress a little bit right now. But we're trying to figure out in terms of lighting. Probably what we're going to do is light the big field where most of the tournament play would take place anyway, and the bigger kids play on, and run conduit to the other fields so that at a future date, lighting could be put up either through grants or some other process. But initially, it's just too costly to light every field. And honestly, the other fields are designed for 4 to 6 to 8 year olds. And while there are some parents that believe lights are really needed, we've talked to a lot of parents of 4 and 6 and 8 year olds, and they said, these kids, if they're running around for a half an hour, they're done. They're pretty much done, and that's all they care about. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't tell that story.
It's up to you, man.
But anyway, we just had some funny stories told to us by some of the parents, but about the kids and their, I guess their attention span at 4 or 5 years old. So
It's not about soccer.
Yeah, it wasn't about soccer. They're pretty short attention spans. So, but at a later date, we probably would do that. But, we're adding a lot of fields. We were told before that they were barely getting by, and so now with the new fields, we think it's really going to help tremendously. And then again, once we're done with that, we start Sarah Park, and that complex will be really nice. So, and that's not a small nut. We're talking $10 million.
At least.
Yeah, at least.
I'd
You're
like
right.
to be able to do it for 10.
I agree with Charlie. I hope to do it for $10 million, but we're not going to do it on the cheap. If we're going to do it, let's do it right the first time. Get it done. All too often, we've seen projects that it ends up getting done on the cheap, and we regret it 5 years later. So we're going to do it right. Any other questions? Go ahead, Chuck.
Did we get all that financing taken care of as far as we were borrowing money so we can use our money?
Yes.
And all that?
Yeah, the average interest rate was somewhere about 1.7%, which
Going up.
I'm glad we did it when we did it, because it would be a lot higher right now.
Yep.
So we are, what Chuck is talking about is that we're hitting up against the expenditure limitation statute in state law, which basically says that cities and towns are limited as to how much they can spend in any given year without regard to their financial status. So even though we've got plenty of money in the bank, we're not allowed to use it. However, one of the loopholes is that if you borrow the money, it doesn't count. Tell me why that makes sense. But so what we did was we went out and got a $12 million bond or line of credit, basically, at about an average rate of 1.718, which is really a good interest rate. And now we're able to do these projects, and once they're done, we just use the available cash and pay them off. So
We're going to be coming, and that expenditure limitation it's an antiquated rule, went into effect back in 1980. It was kind of in response to California's Prop 13, and many states adopted different types of tax limitation measures. And in Arizona, it was the expenditure limitation rule, which locks us into a formula that goes back to 1980. And of course, Lake Havasu City was incorporated just 2 years before that. So, we were subject to these 1980 numbers that form the basis of this equation that over the years, because of the borrowing that took place, because of the irrigation and drainage district, which I won't get into but that exempts, the IDD taxes are exempt from expenditure limitation. The equation allows consideration for population growth, which obviously we've grown since 1980 as a community. But in the last few years, all of those benefits in that equation that have allowed Lake Havasu City to grow without concern for expenditure limitation have all kind of come home to roost now, and here we are, we're bumping up against it. And so we are bound by the restrictions of expenditure limitation, and there are a few solutions. Most of them are they're all temporary solutions. One is doing a permanent base adjustment. That's going back to that 1980 base number here in Lake Havasu City, and adjusting that number up so that we can continue on forward. It's kind of like hitting the reset button, so to speak. But you have to be very careful about what you make that number, because you only get one shot at that. There's a couple of other solutions. One is a 4-year solution. It's what's called a home rule. That has to go to the voters. The other is an override, a budget override, like we've done for the school district, and that's only a 1-year solution. So 85% of the cities and towns in the state of Arizona have dealt with expenditure limitation in one way or another. For us, I believe it would be prudent for us to do a permanent base adjustment, which does have to go to the voters. It does have to be approved by the electorate, and the soonest we can do that is in 2018. And we're working on, right now we're working on what that number should be. What should we go to the voters and ask them to readjust our base index to? And I think in our community that works, because we know what the limit of this community is. It's 96,000 people. That's probably going to happen in the next 30 to 50 years. So I think a permanent base adjustment is the solution for Lake Havasu City. But it's going to be a tough educational effort that we need to bring out to the people, to make it so that they're not afraid to go ahead and adopt that what's going to look like a huge number in 2018 that's going to appear on the ballot. So in the meantime, we have to try and educate people, just like we're doing with you right now. It's something that we need to do so that we're not having to continually come back and revisit this issue over and over and over again, and have to borrow money in the meantime to be able to get around it and still do the capital projects that the people want to get done. But this ridiculous rule is keeping us from doing it unless we borrow the money to do it. And obviously that ends up just costing more in the long run.
Chuck?
One more solution, how about getting with, I know we're involved to cities and towns and the counties and stuff like that, is to get with our legislators and their legislators and get rid of the damn rule.
Yeah, wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
Get them to get on board, for coming into the 21st century.
Yeah, that was my initial response, Chuck. Well, let's just change the law. That's not so easy in this case. As I mentioned earlier, 85% of the cities and towns in the state have already dealt with this. And it would have to be a constitutional amendment. So it would have to go to the electorate across the state, and it would have to be approved by the voters in the state of Arizona, many of whom have already dealt with it. So and to go to the voters of the state of Arizona to change the Constitution to allow cities and towns to spend more, that would be a tough political sell.
Because that's how it gets played.
So that's how it would be interpreted. And,
many communities aren't in our financial position where we have done a good job in making sure we have reserves and cash on hand even throughout the recession. Many of the communities aren't even close to that situation. So what happens is it gets played by some that, well, all that's really happening here are cities and towns that are asking to spend money willy-nilly. I mean, that's how it gets played. Where in our case, no, we just don't, we've got the money, we just don't want to have to pay even 1.7% on money we've already got in the bank. We just don't think we should have to do that. But I think Charlie's right, we'll have to do a permanent adjustment, and then you can still do home rule at a later date, I assume.
yes, that just takes the permanent adjustment off the table after you do it once. You can't do it again.
Right.
If the law was written properly to where there would be checks and balances, I think it would be a little different. If you just pass, say, oh, we want to get rid of the rule,
Right.
where the cities, Yeah, I could see him saying, yeah, they just want to spend more money. But if they would put in the law, checks and balances, you know.
Yeah.
I wish it was as easy as it
I
sounded.
wish it was easy.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
the checks and balances are our regular budgeting process that we do here. I mean, there are checks and balances all up and down and all around how we spend money in this community, and it's a very open, transparent, and public process. To do that, you know, to mandate that across the state, or to allow that kind of flexibility across the state, unfortunately, as the mayor said, that's just kind of dead on arrival politically at the polls. So we'll deal with it locally, and I think, again, as long as we can educate the voters in this city that it's the right thing to do, is to do a permanent base adjustment, and we get it done. Frankly, I think if we pick the right number, that will take us through to build out, and we'll never have to deal with it again.
The problem is a lot of people in this city, their interests are a mile wide, but their knowledge is an inch deep.
That's pretty profound.
I'll leave it
Jeff.
with that. Donna.
A little off the subject here. I had a client ask me, since we're not able to donate the live Christmas trees to put into the water for fish or fish habitat, is there a suggestion? Are we doing
I'm guessing they'll go in the
anything
landfill.
You know, we'll still have a place to collect those trees. What will happen to them after that, I really haven't had that discussion. If we chip them up and make mulch out of them, or they just go to the landfill, or we have a big bonfire, I don't know. We haven't had that discussion, but it's not surprising that that after so many years of adding that organic matter to the lake, that they want to kind of take a break from that for a while.
No,
So.
and I think they were just saying that they loved having a living Christmas tree during the holidays, but now they wanted to know the safe way to dispose of it, so.
Right. We'll still pick them up, or have a place where you can drop them off.
Yeah. The council will be having their annual, we call it a retreat. It'll be at a resort location called Lake Havasu City. And it will be at the Island Inn, is that right? No. Islander Clubhouse. So and there we'll be talking about priority-based budgeting and reassigning committees, because we have 2 new council members, so we'll be reassigning a lot of committees, and then talking about priorities for the next 12 to 60 months. So that will play. What's the date? I can't remember. Is it 12th?
January 11th.
11th and 12th.
Yeah, the whole day on the 11th, which is a Wednesday, and the morning of the 12th, which is obviously Thursday.
Obviously, those are open to the public if you want to sit in and listen to what we talk about.
Very exciting.
Yeah, they're really exciting.
It's going to be an interesting discussion, because we're going, and I've instructed staff to come back with a proposed presentations that we will present at the retreat. And I've asked them to, let's not just look 5 years or 10 years, or, you know, we're beginning the preparation process for a biennial or a 2-year budget process, which we use 5 and 10-year projections to prepare. I've asked them to look out beyond 5, 10 years. Let's look all the way out to this community's build out, because again, we're examining where we're going to be financially at build out in 30 to 50 years at 96,000 population. So I've asked each of the departments to do that same internal examination for their individual departments: police, fire, maintenance, operations, traffic, transportation. Let's look at what this community is going to look like when it is built out at 96,000 people. What is our carrying capacity now compared to what it needs to be at 96,000 population? So we're going to present those scenarios to council, and hopefully it will lead to some very interesting conversations about what it's going to take to get us from here to there.
Anyone else? Chuck?
On the, we're talking about build out to the north of that, but there, it seems like, you know, you got the Foothills Estates, the second phase projects going.
Yep.
And then you got the other two projects up by Donkey Acres. And then
Yeah.
this one down here at Contact Point, it seems like everything's going east and south, kind of.
Well, that because north is owned by Arizona State Trust Lands. So what's going to happen is when the existing private properties have been filled in, I will guarantee you there will be a push to release those lands. We actually called them to find out whether or not, when they had planned to release them, and somebody let the dogs out. They said that they'll release them when they get a request to do so, but nobody has come to them and saying we're interested in buying the property.
It seems to me that, like the two spots over by Donkey Acres, it seems, what I can get through the Parks and Rec is like 80 homes apiece. And then how many down
Somewhere
there
in there.
Contact?
600.
600, and then you got what, at Foothill Estates, that's 200.
Yeah, smaller patio type homes, I believe they are. And we still have lots available. But you know what? Our own projections for the sewer project show that it's 300 new homes a year. And we're pretty much right on track for that.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, the president of our Realtors Association is sitting here, and he can tell you that demand's pretty high. So,
The
and
ones up at Foothill Estates, are those, you buy your lot and build the home you want on it, or is it like a regular lot out here, in town, or?
you know, I don't
They
think.
decide what they want to put on there, and you have
They
to.
have a designated builder.
Yeah, I can't speak to the new phase, but if it's like the first phase, which I'm assuming it is, you only had a very limited number of builders to select from. Somewhere between 2 and 5 builders, that was it. And the designs of the home had to be
Consistent.
very consistent, of the Italian kind of style home, or whatever that. I don't know. My wife would tell you. Tuscan style home.
Is any of the ones down here at Riviera, are those going to be any of those RE?
We haven't seen a plan at this point.
Because
So
that allows 2-story down there, right?
yeah, and I don't know what they have planned there. We haven't seen that.
We've seen a concept layout,
Right.
but we haven't, I don't even think they actually
No
know at this
PD
point.
yet.
There'll be a variety of building types in there, all the way from custom lots to, garden homes and townhomes and condos. So there'll be the whole gamut in
And if
between.
there were-
Parts of it will be
Right.
gated, other parts will be open and
And
public.
even if there were 2-story homes down there, it wouldn't interrupt anybody's view up above 95 because it goes down so severely. I mean, I don't think people will hardly see that. They might see the hotel that ultimately goes
I
up
was
there.
going to say, what about the resort?
That'd be about the only thing they could see. But you know what? You can't see across there anyway because of the berm.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Right now you're just looking at a big old pile of dirt. So. Anyone else? What's that?
Mayor's on Facebook already celebrating his birthday.
All right.
Yeah, wow. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Gosh.
One more question, Charlie. Do you know if in the Parks and Recreation Department, do we have a paid volunteer that does a fishing, teaches kids how to fish?
A paid volunteer?
Yeah.
We call those
Well,
employees.
From what I understand, I forget who I was even talking to about it, but they said a friend of theirs is paid by Parks and Recs to teach these kids how to fish. He doesn't actually belong to Parks and Rec, he's not a city employee.
Huh.
That's my friend George.
Was that it?
George does that.
There are
George
people
Lloyd.
who conduct, the one that comes to mind
yeah,
is
it's-
tennis instruction and
Snake training.
snake training, those kinds of things. There are people who charge for their service, and it's conducted through the
Parks and
Recreation
Rec.
Services Department, so that people have a place where they can go and sign up and all of that. And we extract a, I don't know, 20% admin fee or something out of it. So this may be the case that you're talking about. I'm not familiar with the details about it, but it sounds like that's probably what you're talking
He
about.
works for the school district with the fishing programs.
Okay.
Not Parks and Rec, but I think Parks and Recs are tied up in it, but he actually works for the school district taking kids fishing during the school year,
There you go.
teaches them how to fish.
I think we have a bass fishing club at the high school.
Is the city gonna have any participation in the Balloon Fest?
The only participation we have is when they request services.
We participate in the planning too for traffic and
Yeah,
parking and all
but
that.
that's part of the service,
Right.
where they need
Traffic
police,
control.
fire, that sort of thing, but the city doesn't have a hand in that event. It's a private event. It's been highly successful. They take the proceeds and distribute it throughout the community to various nonprofits. It's been very, very successful.
The city has taken a more active role in traffic enforcement.
Right.
You know, in prior years when volunteers were in charge of that, there were some unsafe conditions that came out of it. So the police department has said that anybody out in the street doing traffic control will be a police department, a cop.
Do they reimburse the city for the police?
Yes, they
using
do.
it? Okay.
Yes, they do. Yep. Yeah, that's part of the agreement.
They don't like it, but they do.
Yeah, and you know, it's a two-edged sword. We get that because, you know, they say, well, if we got to pay the city, then we can't distribute as much money to nonprofit organizations. We get that, but there are some taxpayers that say, but it's at my expense. So, you know, fair is fair. So, what we try to do is to recover our costs, basically. And we're not trying to make a profit or any of the rest of it. We're just trying to recover the costs so taxpayers are whole.
And we only charge them for the actual out-of-pocket costs. Some communities, they charge the fully burdened rate, you know, the cost of the vehicle per hour and all of that stuff. We don't do that, and actually we don't charge them for the cops who are on duty anyway, that may get assigned to that particular event. But if we have to bring in police officers to either backfill or you know, additional expense, we just charge the actual out-of-pocket expense to the taxpayer that results from that activity. So we don't fleece them in any way. In fact, actually, we're very flexible on what they get charged. But again, the city can't subsidize that or any other event.
Yeah, I know they need volunteers. So if anybody's interested, I volunteered one year. I had a blast.
You were almost one of those traffic.
I was almost
incidents.
one of those traffic incidents. Yeah. They put me in charge of collecting money for parking. You know, so they'd come up to a stop area, and I'd hand them a parking slip, and they would give me money. And I don't think they'll ever do that again because everybody that came up said, "Oh my goodness, it's the mayor," and then wanted to ask me a question. So the lines were getting longer and longer and longer. So, but I really enjoyed it. I would say that anybody going there, be patient. What Charlie was talking about is almost a traffic incident. There was a gentleman in a large RV who was very impatient. Where I was standing was right by a temporary stop sign, and I actually had my water down on the stop sign, and then I turned to the right, and that's where people were coming, and this gentleman with his big RV went to the left, and I had just bent over to pick up my water, and his big mirrors knocked the stop sign over, which is where my head would have been. And it's like, really? You know, and he just off he went. He just was, got impatient. So you have to have a little patience. The lines are long, but I think the event's worth it, no doubt about it. I've enjoyed it every time. And you know, when you see all those 50 or 70 balloons flying all over the place, boy, what a beautiful picture that is. You know, the balloonists will tell you this is one of the few spots that they get to fly where it's over water. And that's very rare, and they just absolutely love it.
On purpose.
Yeah, they fly over water on purpose. Yeah.
Dropping here tonight, he could have used you last year as trash pickup.
Yeah. And there is somebody here today, Mike, who I remember a few years ago, who called me up and he says, Mark, there's a balloon about ready to land in my backyard. And I said, Mike, why don't you call somebody that cares?
Don't we still have that balloon in town that goes up for afternoon, evening type, like wine and cheese, stuff like that?
I don't know if he's, I don't know.
I saw Dean Baker up in his balloon yesterday.
Yeah, I seen one yesterday too.
And
Or I didn't.
actually, there was two of them up yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
not sure who the other owner is, but clearly they're gearing up for it. Whether there's a wine and cheese
yeah, I'm not
sunset
aware
thing,
of that.
I don't know.
I got one to bring up. and
Sure.
I don't know what the public feels about this. And it seems like running red lights on 95 is really getting out of control. I saw a lady yesterday, the light had already turned red and the car started going. She went through that light like it wasn't even there. It's just, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse as far
There
as-
is concentrated enforcement taking place on the highway now. In fact,
Yeah,
I'm getting
especially on
complaints.
95 all through there.
I'm getting complaints from people complaining that there are too many cops out on the highway. But the police chief himself has had a couple of close calls, and so he's got his officers paying particular attention to what's going on the highway. So hopefully we'll
I hate to
be
see
able
over
to.
enforcement, but it's just crazy.
It's a result of
Yeah.
bad driving. Sometimes you just have to do it.
And your
Mike.
metropolitan regional transportation district, they look into that too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember listening to, they were talking about where all the accidents are
Correct.
in that.
Right.
Worst spot was Kiowa?
You know, at the old Walmart, and they're redesigning that. ADOT's going to be redesigning that. Yep, they're going to put a median strip so that, because really what happens is the left turns out of there. So they're going to put a median strip to prevent that. Mike?
Having moved here from Denver, I thought I would share with the gentleman how to tell if it's a Colorado driver.
Most of them are Californians.
Colorado drivers are the third car through the red light.
That's a good one.
Oh my. Anyone else?
I want to apologize for being late today.
Stuck in traffic?
Family
He ran a
crisis.
red light.
Apparently couldn't wait till I got home. So.
All right, well, Merry Christmas to all of you. Norm.
When's the January meeting?
6th? Friday the 6th. Do we know where yet? At Mackay's Cafe. Yep. All right, well, thank you all for attending. Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday.